Shalom Akim, Kahalayim La, Yahaba Hashem Yahushua Hashem Rakha Kudash, and double honors to the great Muslim apostles and elder bishops of Great Millstone. Yaratazar, that you find this video edifying and exhorting. Edifying meaning to build up, and exhorting meaning to encourage as well. So, just to get straight to the point, I was watching a documentary. Most people would know about him, David Attenborough. And as you can see from the top left, it's called Our Planet. Season 1, episode 8, in case any bros want to catch up on it. Sometimes you get tired of watching entertainment. You just want something peaceful and calm to watch, man. But yeah, there was a quote, as you're seeing here, that was brought to my attention, man. As it says, many in fact would not have germinated had they not received a baptism of fire. And really, as you can see from the episode name, it's called Forest, man. So he was talking about forest fires in this portion of the episode, 19 minutes, 30 seconds in. And it was mentioned about the fact that sometimes these natural forest fires occur in order to clear out the old and then bring in the new. And of course, the trees of which do survive those forest fires, they typically have a very strong bark, which is the outward surface of a tree trunk, the bark. So, that you can liken the forest really as Israel as a whole, and those who got burnt away as the wicked Israelites. And of course, those who remained, really being the elect of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. So Yaratazar, that's really the point of this lesson. And I'm gonna bring out some precepts. But prior to that, I'll bring out a precept first, then I'm gonna play a clip. But the clip, of course, I can't show the actual footage, or else copyright might happen again. But yeah, let me get the precept first, and then I'll get to the audio of it. Yaratazar, the video should be fine. This is Zechariah 13 and verse 8. It says, "And it shall come to pass that in all the land, saith the Lord Yahweh, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and die, but the 3rd part shall be left therein." You see, so of course those 2/3 are likened as the ones that will go through that burning, that fire. But of course, there's 2 types of fire. The 2/3 are going to go through that literal fire, where, they're going to die from it. Talk about Babylon the Great. Of course, Joel 2 talks on it. Let me get it right now. So this is Joel 2 and verse 1. I believe up to about 4 verses should be good. So Joel 2, starting from verse 1. "Blow ye the trumpet in Zion, and sound an alarm in my holy mountain, that all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord Yahweh cometh, for it is nigh at hand." And of course, for clarification, whenever you see Lord in the capitals, that's referring to the Most High, Yahweh, that's his name, which means he is the existing one. He exists. Now, verse 2, "A day of darkness and of gloominess, a day of clouds and of thick darkness, as the morning spread upon the mountains, a great people and a strong." You see, a great people and a strong. This is not literally talking about physical people. It's talking about the nuclear missiles. It's in a metaphorical sense. "There hath not been ever the like, neither shall be any more after it, even the years of many generations." It says, "A fire devoureth before them." You see, a fire devoureth before them. Just like a nuclear missile, when the missile is sent, the fire propels it. "And behind them a flame burneth. The land is as the Garden of Eden before them." Everything's peaceful and calm, and everything in their neutral state, I guess. "And behind them a desolate wilderness." So once the nuclear missile hits that land, it's an utter desolation. It's in a state of utter desolation, destruction. The land is wasted now. "And behind them a desolate wilderness, yea, and nothing shall escape them." You see, when the missiles are going to be sent, there's going to be no hindrance. There was a clip one of the elders over here in the UK sent, in a group chat where is that one of the missiles actually what did it do? It redirected itself. It's like it came through and then it paused and then it just went straight downwards, man, and then boom. Of course, that's referring to I believe it was one of the Iranian missiles. But the point is, that type of thing ain't gonna happen, man. Once the missiles are sent, they will reach their targets. There ain't gonna be no reconfiguration or anti-missile defense system that will work. All the anti-missile defense systems will fail. But anyways, let me get back to the topic. So yeah, in fact, let me play the clip now. Then should be good. Before I play the clip, let me because I talk about the physical fire, Zechariah 13:8, which links to Joel 2, verse 1-4. Verse 9, it says in Zechariah 13:9, and I will bring the third part through the fire, and will refine them as silver is refined, and will try them as gold is tried, and they shall call on my name, and I will hear them. I will say, it is my people, and they shall say, the Lord Yahweh is my power. You see? So, of course, this fire where it talks about, I'll bring the third part, so the 1/3 through the fire, that's all about the spiritual fire, man. The adversity, the affliction that you have to go through. That physical fire is to refine our spirits to be in a more presentable manner, prior to gaining salvation. It's like basically just improving the spirit more and more and more, removing the impurities, which are just the worldly features of which are unpleasant to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. And of course, all leading up to the point where we get to the new bodies and then we fully can get into that perfected state. So that's the refinement process, the adversity, and of course, what Yahweh Hashem Yahushua makes us go through in order to get us stronger as well, to go through these times of Jacob's trouble, which we're in right now. Of course, we're just going to get deeper and deeper and deeper into it. Right, now let's actually get to the clip.
The forest is far from dead. Within only a few months, flowers and tree seedlings will rise from the soil. Many, in fact, would not have germinated had they not received a baptism of fire.
See, that was the quote. Many would not have germinated if they had not received the baptism of fire. You see, so of course you gotta go through that purification process, man. Isaiah 10:20 talks about, the Most High has left a remnant of Israel. So it's the remnant, the one who have gone through the baptism of fire. They're the ones who are going to remain. And of course, when you actually watch the documentary, Our Planet Season 1, Episode 8, 19 minutes 30 seconds in, you hear David Attenborough say this, man. And that's the refinement process that the Zechariah 13 verse 9 was referring to.
Not received a Many, in fact, would not have germinated had they not received a baptism of fire.
You see, suffering is necessary. So this is Proverbs 24 and verse 10. It says, if thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. And as I said before, in the documentary, David Attenborough mentioned that certain of the trees that did survive the baptism of fire, they're the ones who have the strongest bark. The strongest, again, the surface of a tree being bark. So it says, if thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. That's why, supposed to pray, Baruch Shah, Yahweh, Baruch Shah, Yahweh Shai, which means please Yahweh, please Yahweh Shai. Shalak Chazak, which means send strength. Even something simple as that, man. That in itself is still a prayer of strength to Yahweh Hashem Yahushua. Baruch Shah, Baruch Shah, Baruch Shah, Shalak Chazak. Which means just send strength, man. Sometimes you go get the quick hit of prayers, and through the spirit of Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, day by day you'll be strengthened more and more. as well as praying that Our Father, Palau, Ada one, the Lord's Prayer. Palau meaning prayer, Ada one meaning Lord. All right, let's get to the next one. So this is Joshua 1:9. Have not I commanded thee, be strong and of a good courage. Be not afraid, neither be thou dismayed, for the Lord Yahweh thy power is with thee whithersoever thou goest. So of course, despite going through the furnace of adversity, Yahweh Shem Yashai will get us through this, So that's the innate belief that we have to have. Because really these scriptures are, to fortify our minds, to reinforce a mindset of strength within us to go through these times. Yeah, we have our low moments, but we meditate upon these precepts so that we get out of those low moments, and of course we remain in strength. Because if you're too low and you remain low for too long, that's how Satan tries to get you. So yeah, man, let's get this. Hebrews 12 and verse 6. It says here, for whom Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahshai loveth, he chasteneth and scourgeth every son whom he receiveth. You see? So he let me read in the NLT. It says, for the Lord Yahweh disciplines those he loves, and he punishes each one he accepts as his child. Because it's true. If you see a child going off and it's like, your child represents you, it's like, come on, you go correct him. Yeah, even our fathers of old, man. Southern tribe, northern tribe, especially the older generation, they have a way of disciplining their child, get out the cane, get out the belt. Sometimes, if the word ain't enough, you go bring out the harsher means of discipline. So it's the same way spiritually with Yahweh Shem Yashai, which he has his way personally with all of us, with how he disciplines us. Verse 7. If ye endure chastening, in the KJV, so on the left side now, if ye endure chastening, the Most High dealeth with you as with sons, for what son is he whom the Father chasteneth not? But if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. So of course, the suffering and the pain is a necessity. And you will go through seasons of that. Of course, as a father beats his son, you keep, of course, the Most High, that's when the Most High shows mercy, man. You go through a season where you go through those severe beatings, and after that, it's like, okay, clear up your wounds, it helps to wrap them up for you. And after that, it's like, okay, if you mess up again, he chastens you again as well. So that's just it until we are in those perfect vessels. 1 Corinthians 15 verse 50 onwards. All right. Yeah, it says, but if ye be without chastisement, whereof all are partakers, then are ye bastards and not sons. Furthermore, we have had fathers of our flesh which corrected us, you see, and we gave them reverence, which means deep respect. Shall we not much rather be in subjection unto the Father of spirits and live, which is Yahweh? So of course we ought to show that reverence and obedience unto Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahshai, and of course pray for mercy, considering the imperfect vessels that we're in too. Anyway, so that's why you gotta pray for mercy. Babakasha Salakia, which means Salak means forgive, Salakia means forgive me. Babakasha meaning please. So Babakasha Salakia means please forgive me. Day by day, in your ignorance or in your knowing. So because yeah, man, it's a spiritual battle for real. Now it says verse 10, Hebrews 12 and 10, for they verily for a few days chastened us after their own pleasure, but he for our profit, that we might be partakers of his holiness, for our own benefit. That's why Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahshai has chastened us, because of course it makes us stronger, makes us better, and of course we're in a more appealing state. Of course we know our righteousness is as filthy rags, but nevertheless we keep going. It's a rehearsal. But of course, when rehearsals happen, the point is to get better. That's the point. Of course, you slip up here and there, just man fall of 7 times, but you get back up, you keep going, man. So anyways, Yaratazar, he found it edifying, baptism of fire, man. That's where the wicked Israelites get cleared. And of course, the ones that remain, in fact, one more point, are the remnant of Israel. So I'm going to read this final precept and then that'll be it. Isaiah 10 and 20, and it says, it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord Yahweh, the Holy One of Israel in truth. So of course we won't be under Esau, Edom anymore, none of our enemies, as it's listed in Psalms 83. Verse 21, the key part, it says, the remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty power. They're the ones who would have gone through the spiritual baptism of fire. So yeah, man, Yaratazar, this has been actually edifying, you know, to help to build up your knowledge, and of course encouraging in terms of the fact that, you know, we're going through this because it will get us stronger, you know, and of course to be in a more appealing state to Yahweh Shimi Ashai, and ultimately to get to that crowning ceremony. So anyways, by Yahweh Shimi Ashai. So yeah, Shalom, Yahweh Shimi Ashai Brakatha. And, you know, as always, on to the next one. Shalom.